Warriors Unite! Welcome, my friends, back with another episode of Vigor Warriors 2 in the 1% Club. What a beautiful day out, fall day. I wanted to do one. We haven't done one for about a week or so, so I hope you guys are doing well. Hope you guys are conquesting yourselves. Hope you guys are conquesting things around you, and it's great to be with you guys. We have an interesting topic today. I'm going to talk about a couple interesting type of thing about what is the reason for semen retention. What's the reason for, is it a myth? Is it really true? Those type of things. But let's go and do a few shout outs before we get that way. Calm, thank you, my friend. Stay calm, and women and people are going to be jealous around you. They're going to react to you. Just be calm yourself and just focus on your goals and things you want to achieve, and don't let them bring you down. The Nature Boy, thank you, my friend. Sasquatch, Mind Control, I like that one. Thank you, my friend. Indigo, thank you, my friend. Jzyy YY77, thank you, my friend. Julian Baughman, thank you, my friend. I appreciate that a lot. Oshotenrique, thank you. Austinmccc, good self-control. We'll talk about that in a couple minutes. I like that. LSVI6ZD, thank you. Mattk 5020, thank you, my friend. Love music, thank you. A Father's Pain, thank you, my friend. I appreciate that. Good comment. Albert Davis, I think. Thank you, my friend. Player Games, thank you. And Daruk Kirati, I think, something like that. So, all right. So thank you guys for your comments. And at the 1 minute 45 second mark, let's kind of talk about a comment. And I know I just had a great comment from monalisa, our viewer, and meldmajesty. And we're going to kind of combine these together. Now, I appreciate, guys, when you make comments, and a lot of times you may not agree with what I'm saying. You may want to kind of push back, or you want to have other viewpoints, and I appreciate those. So whether or not I always agree or not, or we always agree, doesn't change the fact that I really enjoy hearing from people, and kind of, it can influence my thoughts a little bit. It can also influence other people's thoughts and things they're talking about. So we're going to combine a couple here. So meldmajesty is talking about the effect of all these things like, weed, alcohol, those things on you. And though we're not going to take that aspect of it today, we'll focus on that another time. We're going to talk about the whole idea that he's talking about. And along with monalisa, is talking about the fact that you should still have occasionally sex with people, interacting with people. And then semen retention really is kind of like more of a myth than anything else. A placebo, I think he mentioned in his email. And so I understand what both are saying a little bit here, but let's take a step back a little bit and why we're doing all this, and why we really kind of focus on the idea of retention. So we're talking about retention, and there's obviously benefits of retention. It makes perfect sense. You don't want to lose your energy. And I don't think any of us really are talking about the fact that you should basically, not like women. You should basically not enjoy, what God has given you. But where the issue comes into play, and this is where the society, to me, has kind of run amok. We used to, years ago, really have a high value and place a high value in the idea of self-control. That a man can control his feelings, his emotions, to the point where he doesn't get into addictive behaviors. Now, over the years, with legalizing things like gambling and drugs and marijuana, different things we've done, we now get to the point for people who cannot control themselves to really get caught in addictions. And so this goes back a little bit to the idea of meldmajesty, and actually what monalisa is saying a little bit as well here. The idea is that we're not really just talking about that, these things are bad. I mean, the Bible talks about the fact that we should have things in moderation. And there's nothing wrong with you and your wife, obviously having intimate types of relationships. That's kind of God has put you there. But the reason why we discuss this a lot, and the reason why it's something that's a starting point for people, is because there's lots of people who are very addicted, and they can get addictive qualities to this. And I know that Monalisa made a comment about, well, the reason we're talking about it is people are afraid to die. And, certainly I think there's probably some point to that. I understand what people are saying, and I understand what he's saying as well with this. But the thing you have to realize is that there's lots of people out there who don't have self-control. And so if you're trying to help people, which is kind of the whole reason why I talk about it, is the fact that we're trying to help people overcome an addiction. And this first addiction, which is really the most powerful to me because it deals with your life force all the time, is the idea of wasting your life force on things that are not that important. So when we talk about the idea of procreation, the reason why that I say that is because I've seen countless number of people who struggle unless they go to an extreme type of thing and say, okay, we're not going to have intercourse unless you're procreating. So mentally, from a mindset, this is important for people, because if they don't have that, for instance, we'll take smoking, for example. The addiction of smoking, unless it's hard for people to go cold turkey. They have to do it in stages. The same thing with weight loss, the same thing with any sort of addiction. It's a habit we formed. And the habit has to be broken to overcome the addiction. Unfortunately, a lot of people then get addicted. They have one issue, whether it's surgery or something on one part of their body, and they start taking drugs, and they can actually get addicted to those drugs. It gives you euphoria. It gives you a happy feeling. So because of that, you're afraid then to get off of it, or you don't want to get away from that feeling. The same thing happens when you release. It's the same euphoric feeling. Now, it's only a short period of time, but you can get very easily addicted to this, where that's all you're doing, and you don't realize the toll you're taking. So, when we talk about the effects of some of these things, can any one of them at one particular point kill you? Well, no. It's not going to kill you one time to have, intercourse, things like that. And I don't think anybody really is saying that's realistic for a lot of people. But with the amount of people who are having so much addictions out there, you've got to have some starting point for people to say, this is just not going to, this is bad for your health. And this is kind of where we start with saying, okay, let's go to monk mode. And is there going to be times when people fail? Sure, they're going to fail. But it becomes a lifestyle change. And so now you're choosing not to. I mean, I'm at the point of 1,900 days, pretty close, or maybe it's just a little bit over 1,900 days, where I just don't feel like that anymore. I'm not interested, whether it's a woman who looks attractive. It's not that you don't have the feelings, because you can still get those feelings. I mean, I've had those feelings still after all this time. But it's the point is you're not thinking about these things all the time. And men can be very habitual when it comes to those type of activities. And so whether it's drinking, whether it's gambling. I give an example. Gambling, we've seen this type of thing over the last few weeks in these gambling scandals out there. And why is that? Well, part of the reason is athletes, and I was an athlete, in football, and hope to try to keep myself in shape at 64 years old. Gambling is an extension of the competitiveness that athletes have. And so athletes tend to be very competitive. And so it's no wonder where if they take something, whether it's drugs or alcohol, they go all out. Well, that's a very addictive type of thing to the system. And before they know it, now they're addictive and they can't say stop. They can't say no. You're addictive when you cannot say no. Now, I'm sure when we talk about things, if you occasionally do things once in a while with your partner, I don't think God is going to punish you for that. But your own punishment comes from the fact that you're releasing 4 or 5 times a day, or you're taking alcohol or drugs or whatever it might be. It affects your whole life. And even though you may think, well, it's legal, but the thing is, it's still affecting your body, and not in a positive way. So when we talk about a lot of this stuff, obviously the key is moderation. The key is moderating in all forms. You don't want to say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop smoking cold turkey. Some people can do that. But a lot of people have to kind of take it step by step. And as long as you can agree, and then we can make an agreement that you don't want to be doing too much of anything, you want to live your life in moderation, then I think then we have a place to go. And so how do you start this? Well, in your mind, at least, you should be starting it by saying, okay, I'm going to shoot for the extreme, but obviously it's going to take some time. And this is where patience comes into play. I mean, it took me 47 years, and I finally had to say, I had to go monk mode. Because the point being is that I could not deal with, I did not have that level of self-control, and I'd be the first to admit that. And so because of that, I had to basically go ahead and just say, we're going monk mode. So to go to extreme, to be able to deal with the situation you have. And sometimes you have to try to do that. Is it going to work 100%? No. I mean, you still have thoughts. You still have things going on. And as I said, I've always said in these broadcasts, that's the area that I still struggle with at times, thinking about those type of things and all of that. So it's not something that's going to stop right away. If you have 47 years of this kind of stuff, you can't stop this right away. But what you can do, at least from a mental standpoint, and a strategy you can use, is learning how to use self-control. And this is where the whole thing goes back to. It's really a matter of self-control, right? A matter of saying to yourself, okay, I'm going to learn how to control my behaviors. And I believe this is really one of the key foundations of life. It's not a matter of how much money you make. It's a matter of how much you save, right? It's not a matter of enjoying, a cigarette. If you do it, I don't smoke, but a cigar once in a while, having, intimate relationships with your wife. I mean, those things, God has put you here with that in mind. But it's a huge difference when now you have to depend on those things and you can't say no to someone who gives you that type of thing. And of course, there's things involved like peer pressure, all these things. But can you control your behaviors? And I'm seeing with the younger generations, this is really a struggle with a lot of young men. Women, of course, have the same issues, maybe in different ways, but because I'm not a woman, I can't really relate to that as much. And so I talk more about the man's perspective. But males struggle with a lot of these type of things, and it's becoming a lot more difficult situation the younger they are. And the thing is that we're kind of taught in this fast-paced society where it's easy gratification, and that's the way we should be doing it. Well, easy gratification puts you in a hole. I mean, just like a lot of things. I mean, people who win the lottery, a lot of them go broke. Why is that? Well, all of a sudden, they're not used to, dealing with money, and now all of a sudden, they start losing their money, they start throwing money away, different things, buying stuff, and all of a sudden they back to square one with no money. And so the thing is that even though you may be rich, even though you may have a lot of something or do a lot of stuff, you sometimes put yourself in your own cage. You put yourself in your own trap because now you have to start doing more and more and more. The same thing happens with releasing energy, right? The more you're doing it, now the more you have to get to a higher level to do it, which I mean you have to get more aroused, you have to get more stimulated to be able to get those pictures. So just a normal picture doesn't work anymore. No normal movie doesn't work. A person doesn't work. Now you have to do extreme things. And this is why people get into all these extreme behaviors, because the basic stimulation is not as important. It doesn't accomplish the same type of thing. So this is really something where we go back to the idea of, well, is semen retention important? Well, it's important because of self-control. Because what you're doing is learning how to control yourself. And the number one thing that needs to be in control is your own health. And your health comes from your energy within yourself. And there's so many documented research over the last 150 years of talking about when people don't save their energy, what can happen to them. And so you lose a lot of minerals. And so you can say, well, this is not a real thing and it's a placebo effect. But if the placebo effect, whether it's placebo or not, whether or not it helps you achieve the goal of self-control, then isn't it worth it? And that's kind of when we talk about these things. So I appreciate a lot of the comments, and some people think, well, this is a bunch of BS. Semen retention is not that important. It's just a myth. Well, that could be true. It could not be true. I don't obviously have the exact answer, but I can tell you that if a person believes that they can actually feel better and they could actually, get more done and accomplish more, they've learned how to control themselves better. And isn't that the final goal anyway, really? I mean, God has given us the idea that we have to try to control our nature. And that's why you don't see people, in God's world releasing all the time. And we talk about that in the guide, that, you're unclean for 7 days, if you're releasing, right? And that's, it's back in the Old Testament talking about this. So the thing is when you look at this, you realize that this is a bigger picture than just semen retention. Yes, it's an important aspect to me, right? I know people, they like to do a lot of videos on it and everything, and it's a very important topic, but not for the reason that you may think it is. It's more important for you to kind of get a handle and realize you're in a partnership with your God, your creator. And that partnership means you have to learn to work on yourself. And on yourself, what I mean by that is control your nature, not just getting angry. And what I've seen is that when people have a level of retention and they can control this aspect of their life, now they can control other aspects of their life. And that then goes back to the idea of saying, okay, I can control not overeating. And so my weight will go down and I look better and I can exercise more and I don't want to do drugs as much, or I don't want to, I don't want to drink as much, and I don't want to gamble as much. And so I'm doing things now to better myself. It builds a lot of confidence in a person if you're able to retain for a while. And now you also see obviously the benefits, but other people see it too. You feel better about yourself, you're confident. Now, is that the reason why women are attracted to you? We don't always know the reason down deep. We could say, okay, it's because they feel the energy. And I'm sure that's correct too. They see the energy in you. But they also see the confidence in you as well. And so a lot of that happens because you're basically learning how to control your basic nature. And if you do that, then that's very, very good. And so when we talk about this whole idea of retention and we talk about this living life in moderation, what we're talking about is living through God's word. And the idea that you should not be just thinking about women and releasing all the time. You should be doing more to be able to say, you got to control your life. You got to live under God's purposes and rule and his word and where he wants you to go and those things. And you can't accomplish that if you're wasting your energy, if you're wasting your life on drugs and alcohol or sex or something like that, or these gambling or those type behaviors. And the big issue is, can you learn how to control yourself so you're not tempted by that kind of stuff? So even though, I appreciate great comments of, pushing back, disagreeing, I would say that the overall goal we're trying to achieve is trying to learn how to control yourself so you don't self-destruct, which a lot of people do. Little by little, year by year, people get into bad behaviors, bad things. They make decisions based on those things. And a lot of it goes back to the idea of self-control. So I appreciate, again, all the great comments, and I'll appreciate both. Shout out to Monalisa and to meldmajesty, who kind of inspired this one. I hope you guys got something out of this one. Please continue to write, give opinions. I appreciate all that as well. And it's getting I got to go out to teach, so I'm going to let you guys go. Once again, I always say two things I'll let you go with. First one, every day is a new day to a wise person. And so you guys are all wise. You know that every day is a challenge. We got to continue getting up in the morning, continuing to work out, take those cold showers, exercise, and continue to have those goals set up, eat the right foods. And then secondly, the other thing is we know the temptation's there. Learning how to avoid temptation situations. Don't put yourself in those positions. Sometimes people get bored and they put themselves in a position. Remember, we got to put that shield on. We got to put that helmet on. We got to put that chest plate on and the breastplate. We got to be able to be protected. And you do that through the Word of God. Stay in the Bible. Continue to pray. Continue to meditate. But the more important thing is to be able to have the connection with your Lord so that you don't have to continue to be by yourself and battling this. And that's why we always talk about the fact that we've got to face the devil. We've got to continue to battle on! God bless you guys. Have a great evening. Take care.